Good afternoon. I'm CARLA HAYDEN, the Librarian of Congress, and I am truly delighted to welcome you to the appointment ceremony for the 7th class of the National Student Poets. And you may clap right now, again. Now, I have to take this opportunity to welcome those in the hometowns of our national student poets who are watching the live stream of this event. Thank you to our live stream partners, and I feel like I should wave, Cabell County Public Library in Huntington, West Virginia, Lynn Henley Research Library in Birmingham, Alabama, Fletcher Free Library in Burlington, Vermont, the Mesa Main Library and Red Mountain Library in Mesa, Arizona, and the Las Vegas Springs Preserve and Las Vegas Academy in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, I have to also tell you that I was very pleased and honored to hold a pinning ceremony for these talented young poets in my office area just less than an hour ago. And it's the second time that we've been able to have that honor, and I have to say it is one of the highlights of the year. We also have two poets from the previous year who are with us today, and we're delighted to see them as well. Now, at the pinning, it really, you have to see the beautiful pins. At the pinning, I was joined by Kit Matthew, Director of the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Kit. Virginia McInerney, Executive Director of the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers. And you'll hear more from both of them in a minute. But let me just say how much I appreciate their stewardship of the National Student Poets Program and their commitment to our next generation of poets. Now, you'll also hear from two very, very special guests this afternoon. Noted columnist, Mr. David Brooks. And singer-songwriter Valerie June. In addition to being powerful voices, both of our special guests have found inspiration at the Library of Congress, our nation's library. Mr. Brooks has written about the power of the Thomas Jefferson Building right across the street, and it was there that Valerie June immersed herself in the American Folklife Center's historic recordings. So we are very proud that you have found our collections to be so useful to you. Darius, Daniel, Alexandra, Heather Laurel, Jensen, and Ariana. I hope you are equally inspired by beginning your National Student Poet term here at the Library of Congress, and we are very proud that you, and I'm telling you from previous poets, will always have that connection to us. As I told you at the pinning and you presented me with autographed copies, you all should be very jealous. I have my own autographed copies. Maybe after this ceremony, you will get your programs autographed too. Don't forget us as you become famous. You are famous now. Now, there is another remarkable poet connected to the library who is excited to be part of this day. And right now, she's flying back from Alaska, where she kicked off her second-term project, American Conversations, celebrating poetry in rural communities. But before she left, she recorded a special message for you. He's trying to get sound, and I want it noted that I am not doing any of this. It makes me feel so good when someone else has these technology issues, and they're younger than I am. Thor, how old are you? And I'm so tempted to try to help. But that will not do. There was opening music. It's Tracy Smith, the poet laureate, and she is in her second year, and she wanted to emphasize using poetry in specifically rural communities. So, what we're going to do, and I wish I had like one iota of her talent, because I could actually read some of her poetry and tell you. And so you see her, and she wanted to do this. And we will make sure that this is available shortly, because I had the opportunity to talk to Tracy and asked her to record this, because she believes in the healing power of poetry. And when she was selected as the poet laureate, it was one of my first opportunities to be involved with the program, she said she wanted to go to communities that had needed other ways to talk about difficult and challenging issues. And so in rural areas, Native American communities.
I feel like we actually have something meaningful to say to one another through the vehicle of poetry. I'm sorry I'm not there with you tonight. I'm actually in Alaska talking poetry with new friends, but I'm excited to join you tomorrow and celebrate your accomplishments.
We wanted sound, and we've got it. So we'll make sure, though, that you get to see all of her message, because basically that's what she's hoping, that you young poets will realize, that your words and your way with words have a way of reaching out to others that might not have their own way of expressing things. And that's what she wanted to wish for you, because she's found that in her career, and she's taking it in another year to communities throughout this country that need the healing power of words. So I hope you will enjoy meeting her tomorrow. Her flight is on schedule. She will be here. And now I'm going to bring up Kit to continue the program.
Well, that video will be a treat. Thank you, Carla. We appreciate your work as both a librarian and a former member of the National Museum and Library Services Board. We at IMLS, our acronym, welcome to DC, if you don't know, the land of acronyms, always enjoy working with our colleagues at the Library of Congress on the National Book Festival, which is coming up this weekend, so I hope many of you will partake of that. I'm really delighted to be with you all today to celebrate this 2018 class of the National Student Poets Program. We are extremely proud to have partnered with the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers to establish the program, which shares exemplary work from teen poets, like those we honor today, with a national audience. As you well know, IMLS also supports libraries and museums, large and small, across the country as they enhance many forms of literacy and artistic expression, including this poetry program. Writing and libraries, of course, are always intertwined, as I was reminded of this last week when up in Maine. I had been telling my Maine friends about upcoming activities at IMLS. I can't turn off my brain about libraries and museums, including this poetry celebration. The next day, my friend was driving me on one of those endless, winding Maine roads. My friend suddenly turned the Jeep off the road through a battered chain-link fence into a small cemetery. The grass was dry, scuffy, and there were very few graveside decorations. It seemed utilitarian and, in fact, ignored. At the very back edge of the cemetery was a very nondescript plot under a tree, Elwyn Brooks White. Various votives, rocks, paper sculptures, folded notes were perched on the simple headstone. Many of White's books and artworks were donated to the nearby Friend Memorial Library in Brooklyn, Maine. One book inscription reads, "For the Friend Memorial Public Library from a longtime admirer, E.B. White." And in a letter addressed to the children of Troy, Michigan, congratulating them upon their newly opened public library, E.B. White wrote, "Books hold many of the secrets of the world. Books are people, people who have managed to stay alive by hiding between the covers of a book." And we can say the same of poetry as White did of books. Poetry holds many of the secrets of the world, and people stay alive within and through poetry. Many libraries and museums across our nation are critical platforms for community expression and advancing literacy and learning for all Americans. And the National Student Poets Program leverages these shared community spaces to create new perspectives, connect us across generations, and spark critical and essential conversations. This year's 5 exceptional student writers, Darius, Daniel, Alexandra, Heather, and Ariana, were selected by some of our nation's finest literary voices and leaders in education, and they rose to the top of more than 300 national medalists. I mean, that's a feat in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. They will receive academic awards, opportunities to showcase their work in libraries, museums, schools, and at festivals and events across America, and they'll serve as regional literary ambassadors for the coming year. Each student poet from this year's class is charged with designing a special community service project, which may include readings, workshops, webinars, classroom visits, interviews, and conversations with established poets. In previous years, young writers have chosen to focus their efforts on outreach and engagement with military families, Alzheimer's patients, English as second language students, homeless youth, and Native American students. And I really look forward to hearing how each of you will reach out to others. This is just the beginning. Whether reading E.B. White or participating in a poetry slam, I truly believe anyone can own the power of poetry and have a voice. Our 5 winning poets are ambassadors for poetry's power to inspire curiosity, learning, confidence, and connections. I want to congratulate you on your accomplishments, and we look forward to your continued service throughout the next year. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Virginia McInerney. I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers, the national nonprofit that presents the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. We are so honored to be partnered with IMLS in presenting this wonderful program and bringing young poets to museums and libraries across the country. And I really want to thank the Library of Congress for once again so graciously hosting us at this event. We have some special guests here in the audience tonight, and I would be remiss if I didn't start by thanking and honoring Olivia Morgan, who's the head of who started the program. Where's Olivia? Thank you, Olivia. So glad that you're here. The inspiration behind the program. I also want to welcome Dr. Lucianne Walkowitz, who's notable in the back by her stunning hairstyle. Lucianne is here because she's a proud alumnus of the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. She's also the chair of the astrobiology. She holds the chair in astrobiology here at the Library of Congress. She will be our alumni honoree in the Scholastic Awards this year, and Dr. Walkowitz told me that she included on her postdoc fellowship application to Princeton the Scholastic Award for Painting that she won in 10th grade, because it gave her the idea that she could be who she wanted to be and express herself artfully about astrobiology. I also want to acknowledge and thank my friends from the Poetry Coalition under the leadership of Jen Benka at the Academy of American Poets and our pals from the Poetry Foundation. It's so great of you to come here and launch these young poets onto their year of service. As Kit mentioned, these fine poets became eligible to be appointed as national student poets because they first received national awards through the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. The awards were started in 1923, which is just about the time that the word teenager first appeared in the dictionary. And our mission and our purpose is to encourage creative young people. So we have the privilege of launching these creative young people onto their year of service, and I wish all of you could get to see some of them at work, as I do. Last year I went on tour in Idaho with Kinsale Houston, who worked in a number of different settings. She did a poetry workshop for docents at the Boise Art Museum. She worked on an Air Force Base high school, and then she spent her day at Boise High School where she read some of her own work and had the kids create a word cloud and then write poems about their homes. And when it came time to share, one of the students raised their hand, and she was 15 years old and started reading, "I remember my first home." And then she went on to artfully describe 7 more homes, adding details about the light, the step families that had come and gone. It's a stunning moment. A pause. The class did this. We do a lot of this in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. And they moved on, but I've reflected on that student quite a bit because she so aptly described how poetry shortcuts the expression of complex emotions and ideas, and how powerful it is. It has the power to connect us, to explain, to provoke, to express, to explore. It's very complicated being a teenager these days. It always has been, but especially now. What better pastime could they possibly grab onto than poetry in helping guide them through the teenage years? These teen poets are particularly well suited to advocate. They're young enough to be relatable to little kids, and they're mature enough for adults to take them seriously. The 2018 class of National Student Poets joins a legacy of incredible young writers who feel poetry in their bones. And their voices are strong and unique, and they will enter their year of service fully committed to sharing their voices, insights, and artistry to audiences large and small, grand and not so grand, like those at the Library of Congress and like those at Boise High School. Poetry is an ancient art form that continues to reinvent itself and make itself newly relevant generation after generation. We are so proud to be here to introduce you today to this generation's finest young poets. So we have some wonderful guests joining us here today. I want to thank all of you, and it's my honor now to welcome to the podium New York Times op-ed columnist David Brooks. There you go. Thank you so much.
So I was talking to the students, the poets, earlier, and I mentioned when I was in college, I applied for a short story class. The professor thought it was short story and poetry. So to get into the class, we had to write a short story and then also a poem. And I'd never written a poem before in my life. So I wrote the story, and I wrote the poem, and I wrote on the bottom, I make no claims on poetry. And my professor wrote on the bottom, and it makes no claims on you. And so I myself do not have this gift, but I'm the beneficiary of poetry. And I'm the beneficiary of the written word. And what I thought I'd do just for a few minutes was to try to illustrate what the written word does for us. And so I have a home 10 blocks from here, and I have a collection in that home. And some people collect stamps. I collect accounts of different emotions. And so I collect accounts of joy. And so, for example, and when you have all these accounts, you realize that it comes in layers. There's physical joy that gets when people are moving together. My old history professor was named William McNeil, and he was in boot camp, and he was marching with his men, and he experienced a moment of joy. He wrote, "Words are inadequate to describe the emotion aroused by the prolonged movement in unison that drilling involved. A sense of pervasive well-being is what I recall. More specifically, a strange sense of personal enlargement, a sort of swelling out, becoming bigger than life, thanks to participation in a collective ritual." And so that's one layer of joy. Another is what they call collective effervescence. Every group of humanity dances in rhythm when they're joyful. And so Zadie Smith was in London in a nightclub in 1999, and she heard Q-Tip rapping over the music, and she describes this moment. "A rail-thin man with enormous eyes reached across the sea of bodies for my hand. He kept asking me the same thing over and over. 'You feeling it?' I was. My ridiculous heels were killing me. I was terrified I might die, yet I felt simultaneously overwhelmed with delight that Can I Kick It should happen to be playing at this precise moment in the history of the world, and was now morphing into Smells Like Teen Spirit. I took the man's hand, the top of my head flew away. We danced and danced, we gave ourselves up to joy. That's another layer. Then there might be what you call emotional joy. One of my heroes in life is a woman named Dorothy Day, and she got pregnant, and she realized that most of the accounts of childbirth she'd ever read were written by men. So 45 minutes after giving birth, she wrote an account, a very beautiful account, and it ends with a moment of joy. She writes, "If I had written the greatest book, composed the greatest symphony, or carved the most exquisite figure, I could not have felt the more exalted creator than I did when they placed my child in my arms. No human creature could receive or contain so vast a flood of love and joy as I felt after the birth of my child, and with this came the need to worship and to adore." And when you see these moments, you realize that joy happens when the skin barrier between one person and another disappears. Joy often involves a loss of self. David White, who's a good poet, writes, "Joy is a meeting place of deep intentionality and self-forgetting, the bodily alchemy of what lies inside us in communion with what formerly seemed outside but now is neither. Dance, laughter, affection, skin touching skin, singing in the car, music in the kitchen, the quiet, irreplaceable, and companionable presence of a daughter, the sheer intoxicating beauty of the world that inhabited us as an edge between what we previously thought was us and what was not us." Then there's a couple higher levels, I'll just do two more, and one is transcendent joy, when we think we're reaching across some barrier that we can't really explain. So I am not a poet. I have a friend who's an actual poet, and his name is Christian Wyman, a very beautiful poet. And when you talk to Chris, he's lived in a lot of cities, and he always lived there because there was a woman there. So, like, he lived in Buffalo. Why'd you live in Buffalo? Oh, I had a girlfriend there. And then, why'd you live in Rochester? Oh, girlfriend there. And so he lived in Prague. He had a girlfriend there. And so one night he was working on his poetry, or one morning in the kitchen, and he was just at the kitchen table, and a falcon landed on the windowsill across the window. And it scanned out, and it didn't see him, it just was scanning like 2 feet away from him. And his girlfriend was taking a shower. So he went and got her and said, "Come out, you gotta see this." So she came out dripping naked. And they're standing there just with this falcon right there, and the falcon turns and locks eyes with Wyman. And his girlfriend said, "Wish for something." Like, take this moment, wish for something. And he later wrote about a poem about the experience, and it includes this stanza. "And for a long moment I'm still in. I wished and wished and wished and wished that the moment would not end. And just like that, it vanished." So that's that contact that people have with nature. And then finally, the part I'll end with, and I actually don't have a passage with this, is some moments of joy are just transcendent, but moments, and then they go away, like Wyman's. But some people, for them, joy is not an experience, it's an outlook. It's something they bring into the world every day. And it comes from the habitual giving other people's delight. And it becomes their permanent way of being in the world. I was at a luncheon here a couple years ago, and I was seated next to the Dalai Lama. And the guy laughs for no apparent reason. He just starts laughing. And you're sitting there and you want to be polite, so you laugh, and then he laughs and you laugh. And I had nothing to say to the guy because he was just so happy. And so I finally said, he had a canvas Dalai Lama bag, so I said, "You got any candy in your bag?" And so he starts pulling out the stuff in the bag. It turns out to be everything you get in the first class cabin of an international flight, like a little razor and earplugs. But he just radiates joy. Kathy and I have a friend, a very famous guy, Yo-Yo Ma. That guy just radiates joy. And that, to me, is a higher form of life, because they are just delight in things, delight in gratitude, and they offer goodness. Now, so why have I run through all this? It seems to me we're born with relatively primitive understandings of our own emotions. At least men are. But what language, and especially poetry, does is it educates us in our own emotions. When you've read a poem, you haven't gotten new knowledge or new information, but you've had a new experience. And often it's an emotional experience, and you widen your repertoire of emotions. The greatest poet of our day, Taylor Swift, was once asked, I actually sort of mean that, was once asked, you write all about sadness. And she said, there are actually 22 different kinds of sadness. There's your dog leaves sadness, your boyfriend dumps you, your mom, and she played a different tune for all kinds. She's an expert on sadness. And so it's like we're born with one piano key for joy. But through poetry and through language, we learn, well, there are actually 88 different piano keys. And who would want to live with a simplistic notion of our own emotions when you can live with an enriched one? It's the sort of thing that just makes life so much better. And then finally, if you realize joy is the kind of thing that the Dalai Lama or Yo Ma could experience and project, why would you want to live for just mere happiness when you could have joy? And when you make that kind of realization, a whole life can turn around. And so that's what I think you guys are offering, the explication of your own emotions and giving everybody a sense of what you've learned about them. And so I congratulate you. I thank you for what you're about to do. And as I mentioned, one serious note, this is a moment where our nation needs a story, and it needs to be told through poetry. And so I ask that you spend some time at this next year filling in what is a gap, and that if there's anything that's going to unite such a diverse country, it's going to be poetry and story and narrative. And I'm sure you're going to play a role in that. So I have never experienced the kind of joy that Zadie Smith did. I can't dance to Q-Tip. But I have had a couple experiences of joy, and this is a replication of one of my earlier experiences. Twice in my life I've had this experience, introducing Valerie June. And this is my second, and this is joy personified, Valerie.
Of spending some personal time with the students, and I was asking each one of them about their voices. And I'm a musician, but also a songwriter and a poet as well, so the voice of the poet is really an interesting thing to me. And one thing they told me, each one in their different way of how they hear the voice of a poem, is it usually starts with one line. And I'll hear that line and I'll live with that line again and again for a little bit. And then I'll start writing the poem, and the poems come really fast once they hear that one line and they sit with it. Then the poem writing is fast after that. So I hope that you go to your regions and you take those one lines and you inspire everyone in your region. And I know that you have this power. I know you have the power to do that, and it'll only take that one line. I'm going to play a song for you on my little baby, and it's a song for love and for healing, and it's called Somebody to Love. Well, if you're tired and you're feeling so lonely, you wake up at night and you're thinking that only if you had somebody, would I be somebody, somebody to love. Did they tell you there were plenty of fish in the sea, but you're out in the cold and you're feeling empty? Or are you looking for somebody? Somebody She's a sweet baby. So I'd like to invite the poets to the stage now, and Dr. Matthews as well. And representing the Midwest is Darius ATEFAT-PECKHAM. And representing the Southeast is Daniel BLOKH. And representing the Northeast is Alexandra Contreras-Montesano. I messed that up. And representing the Southwest is Heather JENSEN. And representing the West, ARIANA Smith. I believe they're each going to read something.
Thank you all for coming. I'm the national student poet representing the Midwest, Darius ATEFAT-PECKHAM. I'm from Huntington, West Virginia, and I go to school at INTERLOCHEN Arts Academy. This poem's called The Beautiful Day Dance. For my father, widower at 33. Mornings, when I woke up, my face sagging, defeated, Dad would smile at me and wave his arms above his head, his legs kicking beneath him. A desperate flail, but a chance to show that he could move his body as well as anyone. When the sunlight seemed to break and spill down his raised chin like egg whites, and the chill bit into us both, he'd sing. The song isn't as important to me now as the beauty of the dance, and I'm sure the melody was a repetitious rip-off of Zippity-Doo-Dah, though sometimes we tilted our heads beneath the sky and just yelled it, despite the neighbors, dispelling puffs of warm air from our mouths as we screamed, "It's a beautiful day," to the blue that filled the space behind the clouds, to whoever was listening. To the way I sweat at nights, Dad rubbing the wet t-shirt that clung to my back, whispering, "It's all right, we're okay," over and over like a chorus. To the broken limbs and the deaths that rendered us, for a time, living memories, regretfully alive, but thankful that we could always spin ourselves around, arms spread wide, to live and dance, and to sing anyways, to sing always. Thank you.
Shalom, y'all. I'm Daniel BLOKH, and I'm the Southeast National Student Poet, if you couldn't tell from the y'all. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and my poem is called 60. Like his own father before him, at 3 a.m. my father wakes, wanders the house a little, pours his cereal, no eggs, no bacon. My father doesn't touch meat. Live softly enough to enter and leave the world a shadow, a breeze on doorsteps. He reads the news until I wake. On the way to school, he'll talk about the latest friend I didn't get to meet. This one was only 52 and lived back in Kharkov. Each night they fleshed their throats out and let evening make meat of them. It took years to learn the way a body, like a hurt dog, holds its history in tight jaws. My father shouts at the car, swerving in its lane ahead of us, then asks, "Have you reconsidered being vegetarian?" I say, "Maybe," which we both know means I don't want to go to the trouble of saying no, and we've pulled up to the school. He hasn't had a chance to talk about the news or say how proud he was to watch another morning swell up through the cracks of night. I haven't had a chance to wish him happy birthday, and anyway, what is there to say but goodbye, my son, and goodbye, my father, who is my son, whose eyes I carry into any rearview mirror, any 3 a.m. drive home when one car sideswipes another behind me. My father who knows we live in worlds of wheels, all trying to catch us. Thank you.
My name is Alexandra Contreras-Montesano, and I am representing the Northeast. I'm from Burlington, Vermont, and I go to Burlington High School. This is Puebla. Puebla is chocolate dipped, syrupy as I spoon it out of the close-knit towns surrounding Mexico City. I just want to gulp it down, suck the marrow from the cattle that get leaner every year. It smells good, being home, or being in a place that was once home. I can't help but hold my breath, abducting it in my lungs because the wind here is a different flavor than the wind there. I thought the thing I missed most was the sizzle your bare feet make against the packed dirt of the evening road, but I was wrong because I am intoxicated by the way my grandma clasps her hands to my heart, like I never left. Puebla tastes salty as I lick it from my top lip, brushing it from the corners of my eyes, letting it fall, absorb into my skin. I know I can't come back until the next thunderstorm season. It gets easier to come and harder to leave. I wish I could stay in this town where everything tastes like cayenne mixed with just the right amount of lime. It burns, but you laugh until the sour. Thank you.
Howdy. I'm Heather Laurel Jensen. I'm from Mesa, Arizona, and I'll be representing the Southwest. This is Elegy Apologizing in Hindsight. I hear July will bring the second coming, monsoon season, and a stock market crash. Each light on the water tower will blink and then strobe. A cougar will sleep under my trampoline for weeks. Dogs will break into every antique shop and devour fine china. From there, the moon will roll across a cliff and crush the nearest mobile home. Today, they are dredging my best friend's body from the lake. She is wrapped in pink tarp and identifiable by her ponytail. The edges of each day are ochre and pulling up by the corners like linoleum. Occasionally when I take a shower, there is vomit already in the bathtub. I should not be here. Not like this. 3 weeks ago, we were kneeling at the gulf of a psych ward with my hands pressing a Ziploc to her nose and mouth in lieu of a paper bag. In hindsight, I am not even an effective attempt at a solution. A threat is still a threat when you pretend it's benign. Sorrow is still sorrow with my headphones in. Her grief was still grief when I avoided it. In the future, I hope to be unafraid of asking questions. Her parents will join a nunnery. The lake will drain through a metal slit in the earth. Her old things will appear on every subway in the world. In hindsight, I will look for the cliff crumbs in the cuffs of her jeans. In hindsight, I will call the hospital and tell them her name.
Hey. Okay. My name is Ariana Smith. I am from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I will be representing the West region. This poem is entitled Descendant. Grandfather, birthed from burning crosses in dense and sticky Georgia, smoke clinging to black skin like fresh cotton to nimble fingers, breathing in freedomless zephyr, Sunday shoes stuck in rich, wet moss. Grandmother, Blooming out of rose milkweed from the Carolinas, twig-like brown legs skipping across weeping willows. Her clouds were frothy and pastel, pearlescent velvet swaying like tiny dancers above her. Father, product of an exodus from south to north, the other side of the sunshine. My father, a lingering love weaved from ancestral needle and thread. Bloodline like a river, flowing through state line, Mississippi currents of dripping peach vine. I descend from the other side of the train tracks, resembling country border, from suctioned lips to rattling jazz trumpet measures, from hot buttery biscuits on the kitchen stove, from mamas and aunties with kaleidoscopes for eyes and a Freedom Riders bus set aflame in a city that was already burning. An eternity of Southern acrimony, a forbidden home, familiar, familial, a fresh wound that never seems to scab over. There lay heritage, blood, spirit, bone. Generations gone with the wind, surviving through me, my heart strung to theirs like DNA. Their flesh dissolving like sugar cube, my body still on stolen land. Someday we will all taste liberation on the tips of our tongues.
Well, I think we have two poets from last year here. Can you raise your hands? Yeah, great. Congratulations. Thank you for coming. So I think we're going to have reflections from Ann Castillo, right? Great. And Ben is here to add, counterpoint, I'm sure.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me back. Welcome to the appointment of this year's National Student Poets. I want to congratulate the class of 2018, Darius, Alex, Heather, Daniel, and Ariana. And to your parents, teachers, friends, and supporters, thank you for guiding these people who write and envision change in their community. I wanted to offer a quick recap of our year as the class of 2017. Alongside Juliet, Kinsale, Ben, and Camila, I've had the best year of my life. For starters, I made 4 lifelong friends. Better yet, we skipped school to travel together to New York City in October, the Aspen Ideas Festival, and Carnegie Hall in June. We were certainly the recipients of a lot of generosity. People like Juan Felipe Herrera, Dr. KATHERYN Matthew, Dr. CARLA HAYDEN, Sarah Jessica Parker, Elizabeth Alexander, and Edward Hirsch lent us their time and wisdom unreservedly. Thanks to the hard work of the staff at the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers, we've experienced affirmation and received a platform to share poetry with our peers. We were given the space to write bravely and delve deeply into poetry. But this year isn't about the amazing gift each National Student Poet here has been given. Don't get me wrong, we should say thank you, often and sincerely. After all, this program is the culmination of many wonderful people's vision and hard work. To Virginia, Hannah, Deborah, Olivia, and all the others who helped at the Alliance and IMLS, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. In 8th grade, my English teacher asked our class to write essays not about the best gift we got over winter break, but instead about the best gift we gave. It shifted our perspectives to generosity and thoughtfulness, and it was a lesson that stayed with me. I share this with you because at its heart, this is the magic of the National Student Poets Program. They help us, and we turn around to help others. I know the class of 2018 will change their communities, amplify the voices too often left unheard, make more room at the table for new and bright poets. I know this because each of you is an astounding writer and ambassador to your craft. I also know this because I've seen the same generosity in my friends, Ben, Kinsale, Juliet, and Camila this year. Camila spent time helping teach poetry therapy to immigrant advocates and attorneys, and connected with refugees from Somalia and the Congo. Juliet collaborated with doctors and patients using language to heal emotional trauma in hospitals. Kinsale spent time with Native students at the Sherman Indian Boarding School discussing identity and the notion of home, and published a collection of their writings. Ben was poet in residence for a summer school, giving academic enrichment to local Minneapolis middle schoolers. They've all accomplished wonderful things, and I hope you'll take inspiration and guidance from them as you search for your own path forward. Before we go, we of the class of 2017 wanted to give a few pieces of advice. Juliet says you should learn from everyone you meet, and I agree. Ben urges you to be unafraid to seize the opportunity you worked so hard for. We also recommend you wear powder foundation in TV interviews and send thank you notes early. Above all, though, take a lesson from Juan Felipe Herrera, who spent the last 15 minutes of our master class together showing us how to fold Starbucks bags into makeshift poetry booklets. Looking back, I realized he was showing us how to make room for poetry. And above all, remember you're here because you earned it, and we need your voices now more than ever. We're standing right beside you, and we can't wait to see what you'll do. Thank you.
Well, can we have another round of applause for these fabulous poets, please? You guys can clap for yourselves. There we go. I'm Anya KREIGHTNEY. I'm the programs manager at the Poetry and Literature Center, and the task falls on me to close out these beautiful festivities. But before I do, I want to see if we can play this video. I'm told that we may have some luck, so poetry keeps us pliable, so we'll try again. Let's see what I can do. Let's see how magic I can be.
My name is Tracy K. Smith, and I'm delighted to congratulate you on having been selected this year's National Student Poets. It speaks to the commitment that you've already demonstrated to poetry as an art form and as a way of life. As I see it, poems teach us new ways of looking at the world. They give us new terms for describing the many active and powerful feelings that we live with. And they also allow us to listen closely to other people's voices and their stories. I think all of that is indispensable to a full life. And I'm thrilled that over the next year, you will be able to go into your communities doing this with other people, talking about why poetry matters to you. That's what I've been doing over the last year as Poet Laureate, and it's been one of the most rewarding acts of my life as an artist and a person, to go into communities with people I don't know, people I may never see again, and feel like we actually have something meaningful to say to one another through the vehicle of poetry. I'm sorry I'm not there with you tonight. I'm actually in Alaska talking poetry with new friends, but I'm excited to join you tomorrow and celebrate your accomplishments.
Thanks for your patience, all. I'm glad you guys got to hear her special words. So before I close things out, I just want to thank our partners, the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers and the Institute for Museum and Library Services. I'd also like to thank our special guests, David Brooks, for that rousing, that was very sweet, emotional talk. And also Valerie June, I'd like to thank her as well. So before I send you off to celebrate, I just want to remind you all that the National Book Festival is this weekend, and the student poets will be performing at the Book Festival not once, but twice on the expo floor, so come make sure to check them out. And also the full day is lots of fabulous programming, so make sure you check that out. Very last thing, there are surveys on your chairs. If you wouldn't be so kind as to fill them out, it does help us here at the library. So that's all. Please go out, enjoy, congratulate our poets, and please have some food outside. Thanks, everyone.